much left to say. She left us with a lot of hope that someday we might float away.
Let's do it.
What I got some, so Sean.
All right.
Well, hell yeah.
Good to see you, buddy.
Dude, it is a pleasure. It's been a while, man.
It has, hasn't
I
it?
I really haven't gotten to spend some like quality time with you in a long time.
I'm glad we're doing this now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can adjust that to however you want. And cheers, my friend.
Bottoms up. Cheers,
Bottoms
man.
up.
Cheers to life.
To life.
Yeah.
L'chaim. So,
And to second chances.
and to second chances. That's a really good way of putting it. Yeah. Not everyone gets them. So when you do, you gotta take advantage of it.
And even sometimes, it comes around, you get like the 10th chance, and it's hard to learn lessons sometimes, especially with like injuries.
Yes.
Like me in particular.
I was going to ask you, have you ever been seriously injured? Well, let me introduce you first.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, this is Shane Mulligan, the Slackline King. He's got a video coming out that was filmed on the Mavic Pro. Well, I don't want to say droid. It's not a droid.
It should be called a droid, but it's called a drone.
A drone. Okay, so it's right there. I don't know if it's in camera, but here, I'll grab it. But yeah, tell me, because I did want to know what is the most serious injury that you've sustained doing this?
Well,
Slacklining.
Yeah, so I started out climbing about 5 years ago, and I was pretty into it all the time, although I didn't climb outside too much. But either way, I was climbing for a couple of years, and then I dislocated my shoulder. And it could have been pretty minor, but at the time I didn't really understand the extent of the injury too well. And so I didn't necessarily allow myself time to heal it or find the proper exercises to complement that. And so I actually ended up dislocating it 9 more times.
Your shoulder?
Yeah, over the course of
9 times?
Yeah, doing all kinds of bullshit. Like even one time I was in my sleeping bag and I rolled over onto my left side and it dislocated my shoulder.
God,
but
just because
yeah,
it was so jacked up.
Yeah. So I eventually got surgery on it, and in a lot of ways they essentially just rebuilt it, realigned a lot of the tendons and put some anchors in. And I spent about 2 years doing rehab, and I actually recently dislocated it again in January.
God damn. Son.
Yeah.
Is it really painful when it happens?
It's...
Or are you used
I
to it
wouldn't
now?
wish that pain upon my worst enemy.
Oh my God.
But honestly,
Yeah.
more than the physical pain, it's just really frustrating. I'd say like the emotional pain is really difficult to manage because a lot of my identity is based off of my passions. Formerly climbing, I can't really climb as much anymore, so I've kind of gotten more into slacklining. But even with slacklining, it really challenges what I can do with it. I've highlined it a few times since I dislocated it back in January. But a lot of it just comes down to mindfulness and really just being able to think about how your body's going to be used and what kind of energy needs to be used everywhere. Essentially, the last time I dislocated it, I was walking on some wet granite after we de-rigged the 100-meter up in La Cueva Canyon. And I just slipped and my arm was on this rock, and I tried to stabilize myself with the arm, and instead it dislocated. Yeah, it was a bummer, but...
And how long are you out after you have a dislocation like that?
Oh, that one was a pretty bad dislocation, I gotta say. That was the first dislocation since my surgery, and that was 2 days before the semester started, so I've pretty much been just focusing on school this semester outside of a few like Highline projects. But I definitely have taken a few months off, and I was supposed to go to this Highline meetup in the Consum's River Gorge near Sacramento in California. But I think I'm going to have to pass on that, unfortunately, because
Let yourself heal.
Yeah, and I just don't think there's any way I can spend 9 days in an area with like all of my good homies with tons of highlines and like
not do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want to put yourself in that situation.
No.
Yeah.
It's just not the mindful thing to do because, if I hurt myself again, I could be out anywhere from 6 to 8 months because I might need to get surgery again. So it's really just all comes down to a huge mindfulness exercise. When I previously injured it, it really just came down to a lack of mindfulness for 5 seconds, not even. And sometimes that's all it takes.
That's all it takes,
you
yeah.
know? Like, you can't erase the past, and you have to deal with everything that's been thrown to you.
Yeah.
Whether you want to or not. But,
Yeah.
you know, I can't just, like, stop doing the thing that I identify with and that gives me so much happiness and mental clarity and just so much life, you know?
Yeah.
You can't abandon that.
No, you
It's
can't.
just-
Yeah. It's part of you. It's like you said, it's part of your identity.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah, and, you know, it's interesting the way injuries have an effect on your mental approach at everything, because, you know, everyone's always talking like, yeah, if you push yourself, you can do like anything you want. But sometimes there's a very real physical limitation that you can do nothing about. And you have to work with that. And it gets discouraging after a while. And having it being such a core part of your identity and also your way of just escaping everything for a little while, you know, like slacklining to me is like this life hack that I've just come across where for like one moment in time, I can just escape all of my emotions and all of my thoughts and all of the bullshit going on with the rest of my life and all the pressure I feel coming from all angles, and just breathe in and out and be in the moment. Meanwhile, I'm showing myself that I can do something that is insanely intimidating.
Yeah.
It's really a spiritual experience.
It's literally conquering death in a way.
Yeah. I mean, it's this crazy dialogue between your primal brain and your present conscious brain.
Right.
Because like when you get close to a cliff and you're like tying into a high line that's like 1 inch wide and like 3 millimeters thick, your brain is freaking out, honestly. You know, your primal brain is just telling you shouldn't be anywhere near that. You shouldn't be doing anything associated with trying to fucking walk on that thing. And then you have your conscious brain giving the counteractive thoughts, saying that like you can do it and, you know, you're capable of doing it and you're going to do it. But sometimes, you know, your conscious brain is kind of doubtful as well. I would say highlining is 90% mental, 10% physical, because it's all just about finding the right headspace and energy and just letting it take control of you.
Right.
You know, there's some days where like I can just hop on a line and like onside it. And there's other days where, you know, after I take 10 steps, I'm just like all over the place and I'm not in the right headspace and I'm not breathing well. So
you probably have to be so focused on and not really even focused, but just in that mind state, which I guess they refer to as the flow state, where you're not overcommitting, you're just reacting to whatever's in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely the most meditative and hardest I've focused on anything at any given point in time. Like the feeling when you're, you know, up on a high line and standing straight up and you feel balanced, you know, you're not fighting to find that center. And really just the whole breathing aspect of it is the most liberating part, because, you know, you can kind of feel like when you're bouncing on the line and you start to, you know, get a little shaken up and there's a lot of energy in the line, if you stop breathing, you can tangibly see this like tunnel vision that kind of goes over, and you like start to panic and your body doesn't perform as well and your brain doesn't perform as well. But as soon as you take a big like, it all just disappears.
Wow.
And if you really just keep the rhythm of breathing in and out deeply, it's beautiful. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll drink to that.
Yeah, cheers, man.
That is
Cheers.
awesome. Yeah, I was gonna say, because I've seen the pictures of you. By the way, I'm gonna plug your video now. So by the time this is uploaded, you guys filmed on this particular drone right here, right?
Yeah, my buddy Sam Glinsman filmed and directed this short film of us.
Mavic Pro.
Yeah, with the Mavic Pro, it's honestly
Pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, I was really impressed, and the quality of the footage came out amazingly. But we recently rigged a 100-meter line, or 330 feet, which is currently actually the longest line in New Mexico.
How long?
330 feet.
God. And you got to walk all the way. How long does it take to get across that?
It really just depends on, you.
Mm-hmm.
I was feeling pretty intimidated because of my injury, but, you know, my friends were having fun on it, and my buddy Greg and Ben from Arizona, they actually came through for this rig. They're on their way to Canada, and they were able to stop by, and so we had it rigged for a few days and Greg came and got the first ascent of the line, and he's the first person to walk all the way across it. So we were really excited to see a good friend of ours like be able to come through and break his personal record and like get the FA on our line.
What's it? What does the FA stand for those who don't know?
First ascent.
Like me.
Yeah, first ascent.
First ascent. Okay.
Yeah, basically the first person to actually make it all the way across.
And that's your FA. That's your So you're the you own that now.
Oh, with no falls. Yeah.
With no falls.
Yeah,
okay. So you own that
to
now.
send, if you will.
To send. Okay, so I was gonna ask you what is the official terminology. So you send the line.
Yeah, sending.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense because I was like slack the line. That doesn't.
No.
That sounds kind of weird. Yeah.
Yeah. Send is the typical word. It's kind of catching on more and more these days.
I like it. No, it sounds cool.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not always about sending though. It's really for me. I just love being on the line and be able to play on it and get in that headspace and just like enjoy yourself and really just get away from everything.
Yeah, because I mean, in that moment, what you're confronted with is this horrible fall, or like, or being able to stay. So you basically can't concentrate on any other bullshit. You can't be like, oh, I got these fucking bills to pay. I got Like you can't be doing any of that.
Yeah, literally nothing else is existing in your head, and you can, if there is. It affects you. Even like while you're walking, if you start to think about other things, you get distracted and like you usually end up falling. But I've gotten pretty comfortable with falling these days. I mean, leash falls are really safe. Especially if you know what you're doing and you're surrounded with other like-minded and knowledgeable riggers.
Right.
The community aspect actually of slacklining.
I was gonna ask you about that.
Yeah. Just like because. My buddy Clayton, he's taught me a lot about slacklining, and we've really gotten close over the past year. It's just really interesting having a relationship with someone where you like go out and like establish these huge things in like the mountains, and it looks like a fucking death trap.
Right.
But like you're confident in each other's ability, and you're confident in the gear that it's going to work out. And finally, when it's up, it's the most beautiful sight because it's like the work, it's not the work of any one person. Like when you see people post things about slacklines and it's just them, it's really like a group effort and everyone is involved as far as like the energy put into it, the whole scene, and being able to just like rejoice together when someone sends or like someone really breaks through a barrier they've been fighting for a while.
Yeah.
The whole community aspect is just really powerful. Everyone's just like really healthy and like motivated and psyched and like encouraging, and it's like pretty open platform for communication about rigging through most of the community because it's all about safety. You don't want any of your friends to get hurt or to die, God forbid.
What is the worst injury that you guys have seen in your group?
Honestly, I've never really even seen a major.
Nothing too bad.
Yeah.
You guys are that careful.
Yeah. If your mind's full, you can definitely avoid injuries. And that's why communication with other people is so important because you can learn from their mistakes and you can, not do that in the future. I mean, I've been around when people get their fingers caught in the leash ring. So there's like a metal ring around the line.
That does not sound like fun.
Yeah, he definitely... I don't remember if he broke it or not, but I've definitely never seen like a rig failure or really heard of one, honestly. But I mean, it just all comes down, like I said, to mindfulness and making sure that you know what you're doing,
Right.
Like let the ego go, let all your, like whatever you think you know about like slacklining and rigging and climbing and outdoor ventures, like go,
Right.
You just gotta really focus.
Right. You just zone in, really.
Yeah.
What is the tallest line that you've sent or that you've walked across?
So I have sent 3 120-foot lines.
Wow.
It just so happens that like, I don't know, they're all 120 feet. I feel comfortable in my ability to send longer than that, but like I said, with my injury, it's really affected my confidence on the line, and it's hard to focus.
Yeah.
And so I haven't really, honestly, been able to highline much since then. But it's not always about sending. It feels really good, but it comes when you're ready, and it comes when the time is ready. it's something that you can't really force, and getting frustrated about not being able to send is really the most counterproductive thing to do, because I mean,
focus on the journey, not the destination.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And eventually it'll come together. All the hard work will come full circle, and you'll give all your energy into a try, and you'll take that final step and then sit down on the line, and it'll feel better than you could have ever imagined. And that great feeling is honestly worth the wait. So even though like you might be eager to send sometimes, it's really just the best.
More about the effort.
Yeah, just to let all expectations go.
Right.
Just have fun.
Right. What is the tallest line that you've tried to do?
It would be at the Fruit Bowl at Moab.
I need to go there.
I crossed bushy melons. It was 193 feet long, and probably about 400 feet high.
Whew. God damn, dude. 400 feet high?
Yeah.
Okay, so did that affect you? Like, did that, like they say, to use a poor analogy, basically, like when you're faced with a very vicious opponent in the boxing ring, like when people were about to fight Mike Tyson, sometimes they would come into the cage and they would already have this mindset like, he's already knocked me out. Essentially, they've already lost before they've entered the ring because the fear has taken control. Is there sort of some sort of aspect of that where you're like, because you've heard stories about this place and then you see it and it has this legendary status?
Yeah, definitely. I was there during GGBY, which stands for Gobble Gobble Bitches Yeah.
Is that like a Thanksgiving thing?
Yeah, it's a Thanksgiving like Highline and bass jumping festival in Moab, Utah, and a bunch of people from all over North America and really the world come together for this amazing Highline festival. But that energy definitely does exist, especially since there's so many people like trying to get on the lines at once. And so like when it's your turn, there's like this intimidating line in front of you. Because at that point in time, that was like the most intimidating and longest line I had really ever tried to tackle, like seriously.
Right.
And so it was interesting because when I first got on the line, I was pretty scared shitless, honestly. It's really uncomfortable. It's your primal brain telling you that you shouldn't be doing it. But once I took a few leash falls, I got a lot more comfortable. And then I wanted to like get a good stretch of walking in, but I was getting frustrated. I had these expectations that I should be able to like cross this line or even send this line. And so I was in the middle of the line and I had fallen again, and I was just kind of bummed. And I was just looking out, and I took a moment to just like breathe and kind of reevaluate my mindset. And I told myself that I just wanted to have fun, and I need to get familiar with it if I'm ever going to be able to conquer it. And so I just set out to get familiar with it. And from that moment, I stood up and I crossed the rest of the line with no expectations, and it was a really incredible feeling. And then I walked back with like just a couple falls,
right?
And I ended up being fucking stoked after I got off the line.
I bet. Yeah. No, that's awesome, man.
But at the Fruit Bowl, I also had the opportunity to go on the 150 meter, which is 500 feet long.
Yeah.
And that one's a little bit higher. It's kind of harder to judge the height because the line actually sinks down into the canyon pretty far.
Okay.
But I think that one's anywhere from like 500 plus feet. Yeah.
You couldn't pay me. You couldn't pay me. Dude.
I wish you'd pay me.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is like, you could definitely turn this into a viable, when you have the YouTube channel and you got views and stuff.
There's definitely some cool stuff to be done. And it's also really cool just like doing projects in your local area with your friends that you're psyched about. And then, like taking pictures and like sharing it with your friends all across the country. Because, there's only probably like maybe 200 or so, I'd say like serious highliners in North America.
Wow.
And there's like these gatherings all over the country where everyone kind of just communicates and gets together for like a week or two, and they'll just rig some lines in some places and then just go their separate ways. But you're still like really good friends with them. Mm-hmm. And so it's always cool to see what like friends are doing across the country or at gatherings that, that you can't make it to. And it's fun to just share like your hometown projects with your friends.
That's
and
cool.
Get
Yeah.
psyched about it. And then, the cool thing is, so like every city has their like local Slackline Facebook group, and you can kind of just post on a local Facebook group and say, hey, I'm coming through your city. Is anybody slacklining or highlining during this time? And we've had people come through New Mexico and just establish really great friendships with them and just treat them like family. And it always feels like really good to, give them a place to sleep and give them a meal and then like have this amazing Highline to go out and play on with them.
Yeah.
It's really cool the way the whole community works.
I was going to say the whole community aspect is one of the most fascinating elements to me, because it's like you have these people who are sort of like this small pocket of enthusiasts in America, but then they're so welcoming of each other and they're so accepting, and they you're hosting one weekend and then the next weekend you're being hosted. Mm-hmm. So that's cool. That's a really cool community.
Yeah. It's really most of the reason why I've stuck around. I mean, like, I love slacklining in and of itself, but just the friends that I've made have like really changed my life and taught me a lot about myself, because it's really self-exploratory sport, and you
no kidding
are faced with a lot of like demons within yourself, and like being able to overcome those with like the support and help of others and like the guidance of others is just next level.
You're making me want to slackline, man.
Dude, you should, man.
Yeah.
I'd recommend it to anybody.
Honestly. Yeah. That's so cool. I mean, that's exactly why I wanted to have you on today, is just to explore this this sort of like subculture that I feel like a lot of people really don't know about. Because I'll be honest, when I was walking on my college campus and I would see the slackliners, there was sort of a bad taste. I don't know why. But I looked at them and I was like, why the fuck are you doing that? Like, it didn't make sense to me as a young kid. Now, keep in mind, I was 18, so I hated most everyone.
Yeah.
I was so insecure about myself that I was projecting it to my outward environment. I was like, fuck these guys. They just want attention on the fucking climbing on their trees and shit. Like, so it was, a lot of it was within me, within my own self. Mm-hmm. But when I first encountered the slackline community, I was like, oh, it's just like hip granola hippies and show offs. And I had this disdain for them. But then later on, I found out, I was like, oh no, it was really like, it was just, aspects of me that I disliked. And, and it's not about, showing off, and it's about like, it's so much more, everything that you just mentioned. I mean, it's so amazing, and these are things that I'm learning now. So.
Yeah, and it's interesting because like a lot of that weirdness associated with like, I don't know, like some people with slacklines becomes very endearing, and like
you wear it as a badge of honor.
Yeah, and because like the whole pursuit of it all is like self-exploratory and just like finding new ways to tap into a rhythmic state and a meditative state, and that's really the reason why I continue to like hang out with all those people.
Yeah.
Especially just like even the fact like getting outside, just like slacklining on the weekends at the park. Like when's the last time you kind of just went outside in the middle of your busy week and just enjoyed being out there? Like put down your phone and just enjoy like meeting new people at the park and hanging out with friends that you're already familiar with, and like getting your blood flowing and stretching and like balancing and showing yourself.
You're converting me, man. You're converting me. I want to go slacklining now.
Dude, let's go sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take you up on that. That's awesome. Yeah, see, I'm so happy to learn about all this, because I'm constantly searching for things to expand my horizons and expand my perspective. I think that's a really important thing to do, is to constantly challenge yourself, because if you don't challenge yourself, then you sort of remain in this state of you sort of start entering into a state of entropy, of just natural decay. So if you're not constantly bringing new things, like new challenges, because challenges are hard, they're scary. Like learning a new language is scary. I'm going to sound like an idiot. No one's going to know what I'm saying. I look like a fool. I don't know these words. I can't pronounce them. And being bad at something is something that's so hard initially, but you have to be bad at something. That's what being a beginner is. Yeah. And my uncle wrote a really interesting piece on how people don't allow themselves to be bad at something, because you'll just say, oh, I'm not good at that.
I'm not conflicts with your ego.
Exactly. Like, I'm not good at skiing. I'm just, so that's like a solid statement. Like, that's a permanent statement. I'm not good at skiing and I never will be. But you have to allow yourself to be bad first, which is so hard to do, because it does conflict with your ego. You have to drop your ego, like you were saying. And what I was going to ask is there anything that you discovered about yourself in the process of slacklining that was, is there just anything that you were like, I didn't know that was there?
Yeah. Well, from one aspect of it, just the actual ability of it all, like I know some people who can hop on just like a 500-foot high line and just cross it like first try. And that is one of the most inspiring things
That's
I
crazy.
can
Yeah.
see. It just becomes this like normal thing. So like when you start to get into it as yourself as a beginner, you're not there, obviously. Like, standing on like a 60-foot line is intimidating, but you can really just show yourself that you can do it. And the main lesson I've drawn from that specifically is that I can do other intimidating things in my life just the same. With the high pressure that highlining puts on you, a lot of other things in life start to become less extreme. In a good way, though.
No, that's awesome.
Like
Yeah.
tasks don't seem as daunting. Like trying to fit in with a like really unfamiliar social group is less intimidating. Like big school projects or like trying to get like promotion or a job, or even communicating with people you care about. Because I don't know. I personally feel like a lot of people in our society kind of have this like wall up with a lot of people, and there's not as much openness with exchanging emotion. But like being so humbled through highlining and being so close to potential danger has really just made me want to show everybody and tell everybody that I know and love that I love them.
Right.
And to like kind of go the extra distance sometimes to like be the kind of better person and just like own up to things and really just be like honest with myself and honest with other people as much as possible. And I think highlighting's definitely helped me with that because like when you're highlighting with people, you're in this very vulnerable state of mind, and it's raw. It's like deeper than the skin goes. It's like your heart and soul kind of just open up in front of everyone, and being able to like share that and have people like encourage you and talk to you when you're in that state of mind is really liberating and very emotional.
Right. You're sort of at your weakest, but you have all the strength from the sideline, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, and from your comrades.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting. It's so interesting that you said that it makes everything less daunting in your life, because it's sort of, if it's like, if I can overcome this, if I can overcome literally staring 500 feet down into an endless like ravine, basically, then why is it so difficult to talk to someone who's potentially gonna hire me?
Yeah,
like you're gonna
exactly.
shake their hand and you're gonna be like, there's nothing you could throw at me that could intimidate me right now.
Yeah, definitely. And just like saying yes to all those opportunities that you otherwise would maybe shy away from. Like I'm actually so for the past few weeks I've been trying to figure out like what's going on with the next year of my life, because it's my last year of school. And I was going to mostly kind of just cruise through my last 24 credits, 2 semesters of 12 each. No big deal, but I came across this class that I was really interested in taking.
You're in the engineering program?
I was
before
I dropped all my classes and bought a one-way ticket to Thailand.
No, okay, we should talk about that though.
Yeah.
Because that's you volunteered for a charity program.
So I co-founded a non-governmental organization in Siem Reap, Cambodia, that contracts volunteer English teachers out to public schools and rural classrooms around the region. And so I spent a few months living there and teaching English to students ages 5 to 15.
Wow.
And really just getting the organization off the ground.
Wow.
And I was just by and far the most wholesome and meaningful experience I've ever had.
Oh, sure, man, because you lose all that other bullshit, like how many likes did my tweet get? It's nothing like that.
Yeah, and like really just living in a village with people who have to live together as a community can really show you that I don't know, a lot of people in America are just really self-reserved and aren't willing to share as much and aren't as compelled to get together as like communities and work to communities as much. And it's really just humbling, seeing people who have absolutely nothing as far as education or money or like a lot of, items of their own, offer you everything they have just selflessly because like you're another person and you're part of the community and you have a heartbeat. And so seeing that just raw selflessness hasn't really left me, and it's definitely affected, what I want to be doing with my life in the future.
That's incredible. And what was the name of the organization that you helped found?
It's called Volunteers for Rural Children of Cambodia. We basically use this website called workaway.info, and it's kind of like a online volunteer platform for gigs all over the world.
Wow.
And so we get most of our volunteers through there, and I haven't done any work with them for a while. But last I checked, we've had, over 100 volunteers from over 30 countries.
That's amazing, man.
And it's really cool to see people come after me and develop the same bonds with like some of the students I have, and go in the same classrooms and like continue to renovate them, and, add more resources, and like seeing my students, make tons of progress with English. It's really cool.
It reminds me of this great quote that was engraved in stone outside the education building in my college. Is, "To those who come before me, I carry the flame." And so it's basically like you've lit this torch, and now people are carrying it on in sort of, in your name, in your honor, and you've created this source of light in the world now. Yeah.
And it's cool to have felt like I actually left a footprint there that can actually benefit people, because, it's a really interesting concept, especially from a person coming from a place like America, a super developed country where we have just so much that we take for granted. But like going to a third world developing country and like deciding that they need something, like to like actually go there and like, and I don't know, like start doing work that you feel like they need when they're this like wholesome community of happy people. And, I feel like a lot of NGOs may be like misdirected in that way. But I personally feel like education is expansive, and I don't think you could ever have too much education. I think the only thing you could have with education is too much of one concept and not enough of another. So it's important that they like continue to learn about their culture and their language and, their own studies and whatever they're good at and what they want to do.
Right.
But, oh man, Cambodia is just a whole mess of a lot of different political...
conflicting, factors.
Yeah, definitely. But, these days it's really good for anybody to be bilingual, and especially for them because there's a lot of tourists that come through their country, and it makes up a large part of their economy that, they know some English and are able to communicate with some people. But yeah, just the whole sentiment of like, thinking that a society needs something when they're actually just like a wholesome community.
Right. Yeah.
It kind of like slaps you in the face.
It is very, yeah, that's true. It's very American, I suppose.
Yeah. Like they have riches that we could never dream of.
Dude, straight up. Yeah. Straight up. That community.
It's like human, it's primal. And like we're sitting in a room with tons of beautiful things, but
it doesn't compare to that. This is, at the end of the day, these are all, very expensive pieces. These are all very nice, limited edition in some cases. But at the end of the day, I mean, what am I going to be sitting on my deathbed and be thinking, thank God that I bought that 12-string guitar? Or am I going to be thinking, thank God I got to spend all this time with my family while they were healthy and strong and
absolutely,
and we were together, and like that's really what it's like. Untold riches, like you said.
Yeah.
And it's like being true to yourself, like you were saying in Slacklining. You have to be true to yourself, because if you're not honest with yourself in a dangerous situation like that, then you can really get hurt, because you have to
have other people get hurt, which is even worse.
That's even worse, because then that weighs on your conscience. So you have to be able to be honest, like brutally honest with yourself. And I feel like that goes for the same when they're sharing their food with you. They're just being honest to who they are, because they realize that you are another human, and they're just being honest. They're not. There's no shades of like they're giving you food because they know it's being televised and it's going to be on a reality show. There's nothing.
Far from that,
It's the exact. So they're just being honest to who they are, and that's what. And it's the famous Shakespeare quote: "Above all else, to thine own self be true." Because if you are true to yourself, you can't be false to anyone else. And
I love that.
It's so good. Like I'm loving hearing all this, and I've never actually been to. I've never even been to Asia. So I
never really thought I would end up in Asia, but long story short, I was trying to move to Germany for a while, and last minute it kind of all fell through. So I just
Isn't it funny how that happens? So
Yeah.
sometimes you have these plans, intricate plans
like
laid
a
out,
year. Yeah.
and then it just falls through. But then it's the best thing that ever happened to you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really glad with the way everything has turned out for sure. But it all fell through, so I kind of just like registered for the next semester, trying to maintain the momentum. And a couple weeks in, I just realized that I didn't know.
Can't do this.
I didn't know my strengths as well as I should have. I
Yeah.
didn't know myself as well as I should have, and I wasn't really fully invested in what I was studying. And I'm not trying to waste my goddamn time.
No,
and
man.
spend thousands
You get
of
one
dollars.
life. You get
Yeah.
one life to live.
Yeah, and I learned more in the 6 months I was in Asia than I ever have doing anything. But anyways, yeah, so I continued to travel through
Now,
Asia.
what was it that inspired you to go? Was it sort of was it sort of you needed time to clear your head, and you also thought that, like, what was it that inspired you to go to Cambodia specifically? Like, just drop all your classes and say, fuck it, I'm buying a one-way ticket to Cambodia. What was it that inspired that?
Yeah, well, almost 3 years ago by now, my dad died, and that really taught me a lot about myself. Really showed me a lot of sides of myself that I've never seen, in some good ways,
Right.
really good ways. But I definitely adopted a different perspective after that all happened, because we were really close, and we lived together at the time, and I really just had a firsthand experience on what it's like being connected with someone your whole life emotionally, and then like when you love someone, you have this like exchange of energy between them. Like you put emotion into them, and you feel them give it back to you, and suddenly when somebody dies, you still go to tether that love and emotion, but it doesn't grab onto anything. And it's this like really weird, hollow feeling that kind of slaps you in the face and shows you that life is not forever. And, you kind of come to terms with the permanence of it all. And that doesn't leave you. And so, then that translates into what you're doing with yourself every day, when you wake up in the morning. Because it could be any day. And so after that, I started living a lot differently. And so my dad's a retired firefighter, and he has like this retirement pension, and I receive a small amount of money every month. But I was working a lot, and I was saving up a lot of that money, and I started going to UNM after that summer, and I just said fuck it.
Yeah.
I had this conversation with a close friend of mine, and I kind of just like opened up to her about everything and toyed around with some ideas, and I 3 days later dropped 18 credits and had a one-way ticket, and I got rid of 75% of the things I owned, and that's packed into a 36-liter bag and just got on the plane.
Yeah. I'm sure it was equally as exciting as it was terrifying.
Yeah, definitely.
Not knowing what comes next. But that's what life is about, not knowing.
Yeah. And yeah, it was worth it. And,
absolutely.
Every
I can tell. You've always been one of the most well-adjusted, more mature people that I've known, that I've had the pleasure of knowing. And you've always had like a real level head, and I've always enjoyed hanging out with you ever since, the first time that you're brought around. And, there's a certain people that you get a sense for.
Yeah, for sure.
Immediately you can tell who they are, and there's no bullshit, and it's all honesty, and it's always the sense that I got from you. And but definitely you can tell when people have been through experiences like these, and especially experiences coming face to face with your own mortality. We're in the age group now where we're starting to realize that we are mortal. And because as silly as it is to say, when you're a kid, you never, the experience of death is so foreign to kids, and sickness. And I told this story on the last podcast, so you'll forgive me if you're listening.
No, of course.
But after I got back from Cuba, I was so emaciated. I had lost like 35 pounds, and I had just seen basically, I had come very, very face to face with my own death, and from what the doctor's estimate was like an hour away from
Crazy, man.
from losing my life, and it really changed everything. It changed it. I mean, I was on course to go to law school. I had bought the LSAT prep book. I was talking with people who'd been to law school.
Man.
I was going through applications. I was talking to career counselors from my college, because that's sort of what was expected of me to do, was to become successful in something, to just be, and a lawyer especially would make my family very proud. And so that's what I wanted to do, that because that's what was expected of me, and I wanted to make my family proud. I wanted to make them proud of me. That's something that I've always really wanted to do. Well, yeah. And so, and they've always been incredibly supportive of all my decisions. But there is that pressure there of like, you need to succeed, you need to be autonomous, and it's important to be autonomous and to do all these things. But I was being directed down this track, sort of, and it was almost by my own design as well, because I was just listening to what I thought I should do. Mm-hmm. And then after losing my life, I remember sitting in the hospital bed, and I'm not particularly religious or anything, or even a very spiritual man, but when I was laying in the hospital bed, I was thinking, like, is this it? Is this really? This is how the end of my this is the end of my life. This is what this looks like. And I have nothing that I'm proud of. I've created nothing. There's nothing that I can look back on and say, like, this is something amazing that I created, that I was responsible for. And I chose to do this. Mm-hmm. In good or bad, I chose this. This was my path. And so in that moment, when I was brought face to face, and I felt basically I literally felt my life fleeting, slipping away. So I talked to, God or whoever, and I just, like, if you're listening, and if you let me live through this, if you let me get out of this, I'm going to stop squandering my life. And I promise, like, I'm going to leave. I'm going to do everything that I want. I'm going to try my best to be the best version of me that I can. And so I was just like, if you let me get out of this alive, then I will change. And, so it's like you said, like, we're at the age where we're coming face to face with mortality. Yeah. And just losing friends, losing family, almost losing our lives. We're getting injured now. So it's the thing as a kid. And as I was saying, when I got to the hospital, when I got back, when I was evacuated from Cuba, when I got to the hospital, my little brother, who's 7 years old, he saw me, and he was like, he wanted nothing to do with me, because I was just in a wheelchair, and I was just emaciated, and my cheekbones were sunken in, and I had, my beard was like out to here, but I had my body from back in high school. When I looked in the mirror, like, just my ribs were sticking out, and I looked like, my dad told me later, he's like, I didn't want to tell you anything, because at the time, obviously, you were going through a lot, but he's like, you looked like a prisoner of war, like, you looked awful. And I was like, I'm sure I did. My skin was sallow, and like, oh man, yeah. And so when they wheeled me out to see my brother, like, he just like got behind my dad and was clutching his leg, and I had never seen that look in his eyes before. It was like pure terror. Yeah. But it's because that concept of death is so foreign to the young. Like, it's just so far removed from anything they ever have to really deal with. So he was like, he saw me, and he was like, that's not my brother. Like, that's that man. That's a broken man, basically. So.
Yeah, that's a lot, man. The hardest lessons are the most valuable, for sure.
Absolutely. I think it definitely made me a better person. I'm sure that the death of your, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, cheers to valuable lessons.
Yeah, cheers. Cheers to
valuable
cheers
lessons.
To another life.
Yeah. But to kind of continue along the path earlier, I basically continued to travel throughout Asia. I was in Indonesia for a while, and I was in Vietnam and Singapore with Audrin, actually.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then I came back. It kind of all ties in together where I'm leading. And I came back and I found Slacklining. I've met some people who were just like really stoked about it and showed me that you could actually do a lot more with it than I thought you could.
Right.
And, like last summer, there's probably like 10 days I didn't end up Slacklining. But as far as like the hardest lessons turned out to be the most valuable, like right now, I'm sitting close to graduation, 1 year left, and there's this really intimidating project, honestly, that I think I'm going to take on. It's like a 9 credit hour class.
Wow.
3 credits the first semester and then 6 the second. And it's called the Refugee Wellbeing Project.
Wow.
And
it's offered at University of New Mexico?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. It's put on by Dr. Jessica Goodkind, and she basically created this project that welcomes in refugees to Albuquerque from countries all over Africa and the Middle East.
Wow.
And you basically help integrate them into society by, any means possible, whether that means helping their kid with their homework or helping the person find a job, create a resume, get health care, find a place to live, like get a cell phone. But I met up with one of the program directors yesterday, actually, and we sat down for a while, and he told me about the project, and I was kind of just like at a loss for words because it seems really intimidating. Honestly, I'm like, it's more work than I ever would need to assume on myself just to graduate. Right. But because it seems so hard, and because of the value that I think it offers, I think it's going to be worth it.
Definitely.
Because, can you imagine having to flee like your home, like, not being able to stay where you've always been comfortable and where your culture is and where your family's from, where your friends are, and not be able to stay there anymore, and like having to flee to a country where you know nobody and you don't know their language and you're depressed because you don't have your normal culture around you or anything of material value, and it's sink or swim at that point. It's so crazy, especially like all the political things that have been happening, as far as immigrants and people from the Middle East and refugees.
Right.
That some people tend to be really critical of people like that, but I mean, this country, on the Statue of Liberty, it says, "Give me your tired, you're poor, and you're hungry."
Yes.
And
your
really, just
masses.
the whole like foundation of what America has always stood for at its roots is to welcome people who are less fortunate. We are all
immigrants.
Yeah, I really feel like we should be building a longer table, not a higher wall.
Yeah, absolutely. We are a nation. We literally are a nation of immigrants. There was an amazing photo album that I saw where a guy way back in the day. Did you lose audio?
Left side.
Left side.
It's cool.
How's that? Is that better?
No.
Hello.
Okay.
There it is.
Yeah.
Okay. But there was a really amazing photo album that was done by an artist who has long since passed, of course. But he took pictures of the original Ellis Island registrations. And so you had people like in their native garb. You had like a Norwegian man in like this gigantic fur, like, and he had like his traditional like trapping hat on. And then you had like these amazing like Ugandan princesses who were coming and like living in the slums to just start anew, basically. They were princesses in the land that they came from, and now they're just, just another
just a part
person.
Of the community.
Yeah, exactly.
That dude over there.
The girl selling hot dogs. She used to be royalty. Yeah. Now she's slanging mustard and mayo. But yeah, it's so crazy. Like, seeing their faces, like they're full of fear and anxiety, but also like promise and potential. Yeah. And you can tell,
because even though they might be fleeing, they're like go-getting as well. They're like putting themselves out there to better themselves and their family. And, there's a lot of respect to be had for that. Yeah. Because I mean, I can't imagine that, man. Like, like relative to that kind of shit, we've had easy lives.
Oh, I mean,
really, we've had all our ups and downs, and that's
everyone does.
That's a part of being human. But
nothing.
We've never
like
had
that.
to like. Yeah. Leave our families to like just survive. Yeah. That's it. That damages like the primal part of us.
Right.
Because I was talking to a friend the other day. He's like, his grandma's not doing too well, and and I told him to really just like cherish, every moment you can with her, because like, of course she's not going to live forever, but the connection you have with your family sinks a lot deeper than anything you could really make with a lot of people you just meet, or like
Right.
even like close friends. Like family is something that cuts
Yeah.
deep.
Yeah.
And you really gotta cherish that, because it's just all a part of being human, and there's no escaping it. So you might as well embrace it.
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah, it's so true, man. Yeah, it's family. They say you don't choose your family, but I can't imagine, like, we've never had to deal with anything of that magnitude, and especially with Syria. If you just do this right now, if you're listening to this, go to Google. We'll wait. Go to Google. You can hit pause on us. Go to Google and just type in the Syrian, like the war, conflict in Syria. Just type in conflict in Syria. Read the Wikipedia article. It is fascinating because it's basically been extended. The conflict in Syria has been extended through a series of proxy wars, which is two nations basically testing their equipment on each other through the use of the local governments and militia forces.
Fucked up,
And so they're literally funding, they're just like fueling this fire. They're just like, here's Russia's like, here's our tanks, and then America and Israel is like, oh, here's our anti-tank grenades. Like so it's just they're just constantly fueling the fire, and so it's just a land that's forever engulfed in conflict, and there will never be an end to it, realistic, unless we as a society decide to really step in and try and do something. But I mean, what can you do at this point? It's just so, like, and what you can do, though, the answer is that what you're doing is take in people and try and teach them how to function in this new society, and adopt them, and how to function in this new society.
And like I was trying to study engineering, and I was always like really into science, and I still love science, but I always had these just crazy ambitious goals because I felt like I had the capacity to like help so many people and like change something with like with just like knowledge and like collaboration with people. And of course, like you kind of grow up and you realize that's not really realistic, and it's not easy to come to terms to, especially after you like kind of have like started to pursue a goal like that. But like after like traveling for a while, I definitely realized that all I can really do is help other people become better versions of themselves, and take it one step at a time, and really just like interact and get involved with communities, because I'm a single person, and I'll never be able to change the way the world works, or I won't be able to help as many people as I'd like to, as a single person, and even just as a human, you really have limited control over everything.
No, it's true.
And so being able to just help someone become a couple steps ahead, wherever they are, is really just like what I'm trying to, do in the future.
And it's so important that just changing on that personal level, on that one-to-one level, like, because that's the most change you can affect. But if you can change the outcome of one person's life, I mean, that's so profound if you think about it. That's a life that you've changed. And that's, the same goes for the opposite. When you have soldiers who are killing each other, you've taken someone's life, and you've done the opposite of that. And it's probably not entirely your fault. You're fighting a war that you don't understand. They've told you that they're going to pay for your college. Maybe you believe in, you want to protect America, and I respect that as well. And you maybe you got mixed up in something that was bigger than than anyone could possibly comprehend. And so I think it is so important to affect change on that personal level, like you were saying, like just offering a hand, and just because I think the more we're at each other's throats, and especially this business with North Korea, man, this is terrifying. Like we have this guy who's extremely unstable. Our ambassador just got back and said that, like he said he's more paranoid than he's ever been, and he's warning us like this is coming to a head right now. And so we need the communication between peoples.
It kind of ties into something that I mentioned earlier.
Do you want another one?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Keep going though.
But yeah, it kind of ties in with something I said earlier, as far as, helping people who are marginalized and like kind of just deciding that they need this type of help. Right. That approach is usually not very effective. And what it comes down to is like communicating with them and being able to understand what they want and what they feel like they need and providing for them.
Right.
And so, yeah, it all comes down to communication.
Yeah, no, it's true. I had a communication professor when I went to college, and his name was Darius. He was he was an amazing guy. I loved him so much. And one of the best things that he said was, the biggest mistake you can make in communication is assuming that it has occurred. And so I always thought that was such an amazing thing to say, because it's so true. Like, it's like, the biggest conflicts come from like assuming that you have communicated with someone when really you probably haven't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's also another thing I've been trying to, work on, is like communication, like actually taking time to listen to people.
Yes.
It's really frustrating, like being in a conversation with someone and having them just like chomping at the bit
to say what they're going to say.
Yeah. It's like you're having a conversation to say something and not to like listen to me. Like, and at that point, communication is not even worth it.
Right.
Listening is a skill that,
dude, it is.
It needs to be practiced too. So I've been definitely like working on that a lot the past year or so.
Cheers to that.
Yeah. Cheers to that.
There you go. You can tell. You can tell that there's people who are just waiting to say what, they're just waiting for you to stop talking so they can say what they want to say next. Mm-hmm. And I feel like there's a lot of people, and I'm definitely guilty of that sometimes.
Oh yeah, we're all human.
Yeah, we're all human. But I try to not do that as much as I can. I try to I try to really like be present and engaged in what the other person, because that's the thing, is like the less you engage in, they call it conversational narcissism, basically, where it's like you're either the hero or the villain of every situation that happens. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, every story leads back to yourself, or you're just waiting for what the other person wants to say. Like you're just thinking in your head, like, oh, I'm going to wait for him to stop so I can say what I want to say. Mm-hmm. And I've been trying to do less and less of that. And like you were saying, just listening is a skill, man.
Dude, yeah. And, even like when it comes down to relationships between like your friends and family, and it's like sometimes you're talking about stuff, like people don't always even need advice.
Right. No, it's
like they just want to be heard,
Yeah.
And that speaks a lot for a lot of things.
That's what you just said is worth repeating, because that's so true. People don't always need advice, but sometimes they just want to be heard.
Yeah.
Because it's so true. I mean, how many times have you been in a situation where you're like, I don't want you to talk down to me and tell me what I should do, but I just want you to listen to what's going on right now with me.
Yeah.
It's so cathartic.
Sharing that emotion.
Yeah.
Like opening yourself up like that.
And that's what you're doing in Cambodia. You're sharing like the most intimate. I mean, you're sharing meal. I've seen like these are just great pictures, like you guys sharing meals and like, and you're sharing with them the most beautiful thing, language, dude. Mm-hmm. Like you're sharing communication with them.
It was really interesting because when I first started teaching my class, they didn't really know a lot of English.
Right.
They were like 12 to 14 years old.
Right.
But it's really interesting also because like they're not as developed as a 12 to 14-year-old in America, like physically or mentally.
Right.
They don't eat as much as we do over there, honestly. And
are they like shorter on average because of malnutrition, or like?
It's really hard for me to say for sure, but I suspect that's the case.
Right. Yeah.
Like they're shorter and like less developed mentally,
right?
And so like literally kind of aging slower. Maybe not aging slower, but developing at a slower rate.
Developing at a slower rate. Yeah.
And so I was teaching like 12 to 14-year-olds, but it really felt like I was teaching like 8 or 9 or even 10-year-olds.
Wow. Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Nutrition is so important.
Yeah, but either way, they're really bright students, but they didn't know much English when I first started teaching them, and it was cool because by the time the 3 months was up and I was like getting ready to leave, I had learned like a lot of their language, and they had learned like some of my language, so we could kind of like
That's cool.
break through this barrier and actually like communicate about some serious things. And it was really cool because this student of mine who really bright, always sat in the front and was like really involved in class and just like a jokester and just like this cool kid. He was really good at art, and he'd always be drawing things on the board and like on his notebook and stuff. And he was good.
Right.
And I wanted to convey the message to him that he should continue with art because he likes it and he's good at it.
Was it hard to?
Because that's what I was doing.
Right,
I was like just trying things because I liked them and I was like kind of good at them.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and that had taken me to some places that, like within myself that I really valued. And I wanted him to experience the same thing for whatever that meant to him.
Right. Was
so,
it hard to convey?
Yeah, it wasn't like an easy conveyance, but by the time, it was over, like, and I left, and, I made sure he understood that, and he did, and it really just came full circle and meant a lot to me.
That's cool. It's such a hard message to talk to him about, because I think I watched an interview with Henry Rollins, who's the lead singer of Black Flag, and he
sick.
Yeah. He's such a fascinating guy.
Yeah.
And but he was saying, like, he was trying to discuss like the concept, because he goes, what he'll do is he'll just like throw darts at a map basically, and he's like, all right, we're going there. So he just goes to like, rural Sudan, and is like, in the middle of this, just in the middle of nowhere, and like these like mud huts and stuff. But he's asking the people there, he's like he's asking them if they know the concept of retirement, if they know, what vacation means, and they're like, vacation? He's like, why would you ever, like, why would you want to leave? You know what I mean? Like, why would you ever want to leave your family? Why would you ever want to leave the area? And he's like, retirement. Like, okay, what about retirement? He's like, retirement. He's like, what do you mean? Like, why would we ever stop working? Like, we have to live, we have to survive, we have to hunt, we have to, like, so those two concepts of that's like so American. You literally hear people on the airplane the other day when I was flying down here. I heard people, like, she's like, I told my boss if he doesn't give me at least 3 weeks of paid vacation, I'm walking. And I just remember hearing
capitalism.
But I remember hearing that because it was right after I had interviewed the organizer of one of the soup kitchens in Portland. And so like going from that reality to like that girl's reality was so crazy, because it's like, the kids who are making Nike shoes and are not which I'm ironically wearing right now. So shout out to hypocrisy.
We're all human.
But I mean, they're not like, we better get 3 weeks of paid vacation. They're like, I need to fucking eat tonight.
Yeah.
I'm going to sew these goddamn shoes.
Can I get 3 meals today?
Yeah. So it's like,
vacation.
so I think it's important to have that perspective that you had of like seeing places that are not as well off. Because in America, even people who we consider to be poor, like extremely poor, have access to clean water. They have access to food. They have access, like, it's crazy.
Yeah. I've read about this kind of concept a lot, where like, how Rockefeller was like one of the wealthiest individuals that's ever lived.
I think he
like,
is
maybe like
he's the
the
guy.
kingpin.
Yeah.
But he didn't have stuff like microwaves and like and like dishwashers and like things to wash his clothes or cars or any of that.
Right.
And even like some of the poorest communities have those, but they're lacking a sense of community. I really feel like the sense of the pursuit of happiness really involves being with your community and being with your tribe that you can connect with, and to understand people and to be understood. And I've really been pursuing that as like my primary sense of wealth for a while. It's always,
I love that.
Like money is interesting because it can afford you all these different opportunities, and like it's necessary to do a lot of things sometimes. But
you know what Mr. Bell told me? He told me, that guy's so fascinating, by the way. I won't say his first name just because but one of the things Mr. Bell told me was money doesn't buy happiness, but it does buy freedom. Mm-hmm. So like it allows you it allows you freedom to do what you want to do. But he said it doesn't. He made that very clear. Like it doesn't buy happiness, but it does buy freedom.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so interesting and so profound. Like because it's true. It is like it's. But you're right. Money, it can't buy happiness. That's what the people do. Those like multimillionaires. It's never enough. Like they're constantly more, and they need more.
Yeah, that becomes toxic. You know, I've really been like torn because I don't want to like have what I pursue as a career have to revolve around money, but at the same time, I don't want to be struggling for any money. You know, I want that freedom that's associated with it, and I'm not looking for it for happiness.
Right.
But, like with the kind of work that I'm trying to get into, it doesn't really involve any money. And,
right.
You know, it's like totally, I don't know. Selfish thing to say from one perspective, reasonable thing to say from another perspective.
Right.
It's all just about what you think. But it's interesting trying to balance those two.
Right.
And, you know, I'm studying economics, and I've always been really interested in investing. You know, those are kind of obviously two different things in a lot of respects. But I've been like toying around with the idea of investing in publicly traded companies that are doing things that I respect. You know, I'm taking this class right now called the Ethical, Political, and Social Environment for Business, and basically just talks about how,
I like how ethics is included in there. That's cool.
Yeah, it talks about how, you know, corporations have a standard of ethics that they should hold themselves to.
But they don't.
Obviously, they don't. Yeah. You know, it talks about ethics they should.
Yeah.
And you know, and then it obviously talks about a lot of like case issues where they clearly do not do that. But
dude, that is so fascinating, man.
Really, you know, you have like a lot of different types of voting power. You have like actual voting power, like going to the booth and like supporting who you want to support, and then you have like economic voting power, where you can support companies with your money that you respect and that are doing work that you think is good in this world. And I've really been like trying to connect myself to that idea a lot more.
Like instead of buying Nike, like purchase a company like Tom's where they donate a pair of shoes to.
Yeah. That's a really good example. Or even, you know, like some of your favorite companies might be filled with people who share the exact opposite of your opinion, or might be kind of ignorant about some things, to be honest.
Yeah.
Or, you know, they pay their workers shit.
Right.
And like it's really easy to just overlook a lot of those things, especially in a capitalistic economy where you just have so much available to you, and you're really just looking for the thing that's best for you only.
In the capitalist system, you're saying, yeah,
definitely, because it's really interesting how it's created this environment of huge abundance where there's more material and more goods than there has ever been. And, you know, there's
in the history of the world,
but like no one can really buy a lot of it. And like the things that they do buy, are really focused on what they want specifically. Right. Actually, Griffin Ferrante.
We're gonna have him on if he's back tonight. We'll have him on.
Wow, awesome. Yeah. But anyway, you know, he actually lent me this book called Tribe, on homecoming and belonging.
Dude, he always has the best book recommendations.
Yeah, and honestly, I want to like look him in the eyes and like tell him thank you.
Thank you for giving me that book.
It's really changed my perspective on so much. And it's really interesting how you can just like kind of blindly throw a book at someone and have it really have a profound impact in their life. But you know, that's really the book that opened me up to the importance of community. Yeah, and
well, a lot of it too is on the receiving end, like because you can give people a book, but they won't. Like a lot of people will be like, "Oh, all right, thanks. Like I'll get to this, you know, right away," and then set it on the shelf. So a lot of it too is like, in order to give a book to someone, it is an act of trust because you want it, because you're the type of person who'll be like, "Oh, thank you," then you'll actually look and you actually read it. So it's But what were you? Because I think you were about to get into like what the main message of the book is. So I did want to hear about that.
Yeah, so it's on homecoming and belonging, and a large portion of the book talks about PTSD and mental illness, and how America is one of the most developed societies that has ever existed.
Say that again, PTSD and
mental illness.
Wow.
And how America is one of the most developed societies in the history of mankind, and we also have unprecedented levels of PTSD and mental illness. And a lot of it comes down to being able to be understood and being able to connect with other people in your own community about what you've been through. And it talks about an example where, like, in Israel, it's like mandatory to join the military over there if you, like, if
that's
there's
right.
certain criteria. And
Even if you're a woman.
yeah, which is incredible.
Yeah.
But war is kind of on their doorstep in Syria.
Yeah.
And they
Israel,
have to do it. And so it's really this commonplace experience, more so, where, like, even if you're not in the military, you're able to relate to the impacts of war because it's on your doorstep.
Right.
And if you are in the military, you're right there.
Right.
And so when they come back and are reintegrated into society, people understand, and people are going through it with them, and people are willing to listen. And it basically makes all the difference between PTSD rates, past like 20, 30 years and, compared to America, where it's just like seriously unprecedented levels. Like, no other country has such high mental illness and PTSD rates. And I think that really, says a lot.
Why was it that they said that we had such high?
Because we're so disconnected, I kind of tying back into a point that I was trying to get to just a second ago is, like with capitalism, we're able to look for a lot of things that are really just directed towards us, and we can have all these personal belongings with which we can do things without other people and then don't involve community. And so, like, as that sort of sentiment started to develop in economies in like early stages of capitalism, or even like part of being human, like, we used to work as tribes and have to work together as communities to gather resources. And then, like, if we started to get personal belongings, we could do things without other people. And so as that continued to snowball, we started to come, completely disconnected. Well, not completely disconnected, but we are becoming increasingly disconnected, I should say. And, it's crazy that you can go to work and school every day and see so many hundreds or even thousands of people on your way there and not ever communicate with any of them. Or like, like I go to school and I'm always around like a similar group of people, and I like see people around town, and you don't really like talk to any of them, and they know who you are,
right?
And you know who they are, and you don't
communicate
them, or like don't bother to like care about them, or like even say hello when you're in line.
Right.
It's just crazy. Or like you can like isolate yourself in a social circle with your family, but not your community, not people around you. For some reason, it's just really baffling to me, but also really interesting.
Yeah.
But
and that's what this book is about.
Yeah. In a lot of ways, just it talks about a lot of actually, what I've said is how it's like a lot of happiness really involves getting to know and being a part of your community.
Wow. Yeah, that's so interesting, man. That's so interesting. They did. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
You just can't do everything by yourself, and
it's so true.
You need help. That's just part of being human.
Yeah, that's something I've been learning. Is it's hard to ask for help, but you really need it sometimes. And there was I just watched a TED Talk. I always take TED Talks with a grain of salt, but I mean, there's some good ones out there. Mm-hmm. There's some good ones.
I
agree. One of them was not the guy who's trying to do a human head transplant. That one looks so bad.
Oh man, that sounds heady, if you will.
That's really bad. Oh my god. But it was about how they studied this group of people. It's the longest ongoing study in American scientific history, basically. So they took people who were 18, they're like college students, and they took like a huge sample size, like 500 students or something like that, and they followed up with them until they were like in their 70s and 80s.
Oh, wow.
And they found out that the ones that were the most happy were not the ones who made the most money, or who were the most successful, or who had created businesses, or who had done these amazing, like, married supermodels or whatever. But the people who had the most well-being, like the highest well-being scores, was people who had maintained healthy relationships. So who had
Damn.
good relationships with their family and with their friends,
Yeah.
and who had long relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And and that was it. Like, that was the key basically to happiness, was to being connected to this tribe, like you're saying in this
Yeah.
book, like to have a tribe around you and the support, like you were saying with your slackline, like when in your weakest moment, they're at their strongest, and they're supporting you. And so I thought that was such an amazing study. And I was like, it makes so much sense, because all the money in the world is not going to make you a happy man if you have isolated your family and your friends don't want to talk to you anymore.
Yeah.
Because then at the end of the day, who's hanging out with you? It's like people that like the money. It's like people that are like, oh, you're rich, so I'll hang out with you. But
Yeah.
you know, when the money's gone, don't count on getting a card
Yeah.
from me.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
It's become harder and harder as like time goes on, and as we're exposed to so much information on a day-to-day basis through like social media and just like the internet and everything, to like, you know, like decide where to spend your time and like who to spend it with. Because I don't know, because we also live in this like throwaway sort of culture, like especially our generation, with
dude,
like
yeah.
dating and like friendships, you know,
Everything.
it's like, you know, if you like a relationship doesn't work out,
On to the next one.
swipe right one more time, like,
dude, it's fucked up.
It's yeah, it's really unfortunate and sad, and it's bums me the fuck out, honestly, because
does.
like, because then it shoots your priorities in all these different directions, and you know, it makes it hard to think about where to actually spend your time and who to spend it with, and when you can find, you know, the community or the tribe or the people that you like to spend it with, it really makes a difference.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, and it's true what you said. Like, we live in a throwaway culture, and that's a good term for it, because it's not only throwaway as far as like, dude, I'll find myself if I'm out and I've done everything that I need to do, whatever, you know, like I've printed my W-9 form and I've sent it in or whatever. I'm like, all right, I got some time to kill. What do I do? Dude, I like go clothes shopping for no reason. Like, I don't need more clothes. I have so many clothes. Like, I've way too many clothes for one person.
Yeah.
And like, I'm like, why am I doing, like, even while I'm doing it, I'm like, why am I buying this? I don't need this. But you have these like these like weird coping mechanisms where you're like, oh no, you'll wear that, dude. Like, it'll get cold, and you'll wear this like jacket with the fake fur collar. Like, yeah, you'll definitely wear this. And like, so you're just buying weird shit and then tossing it out, like, literally, because you're like, oh, I'm never wearing this. Like, it's so weird.
You know, that exact sort of like sentiment that's expressed through that behavior, like, as far as you have your consciousness that you're always, you know, aware of what you're doing. Like, yeah, you know, I can like pick up this beer and take a sip of it.
Right.
But then you have those like underlying behaviors that your brain is making you express that you actually really don't have much control over.
Right.
And so like kind of a pursuit of mine in the past like 6 months or so is really just like identifying and working with all of those sort of underlying behaviors, because like consciousness only really goes so far.
Yeah.
And you know, like you're built on a huge foundation of, you know, of other people's actions and the way your brain communicates with itself and your neurochemistry at a given point in time, you know.
Right.
Like I said earlier, you really have a small amount of control about with everything that you do.
Yeah. No, it's
Very
true.
small.
Dude, I just read this quote. I don't know why what you just said is reminding me of this, but basically, I guess what you were saying about perception of how much control you actually have. But Melania Trump in her, or Ivanka in her autobiography was like,
What?
She said perception is more important than reality. So she's like, if they she literally wrote this.
Damn.
She said, if they perceive you to be a good person, then that's more important than actually being a good person. Like, if people think that you are this holy person, that's actually better than being like, and that just tells you, like, I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, man.
That thought is really interesting because the perception of you being a good person reflects you wanting others to think that you are a good person.
Right,
For
yeah.
some sort of benefit of
Right,
your own.
right, yeah.
Whereas if you were just a good person and nobody knew about it,
Yeah.
that would be just to be helping other people.
Right, like-
so just the fact that she
Yeah.
said that is really reflective of
Yeah.
that she just wants people to think she's a good person for some ulterior motive.
Right, and this, it's something that ties back to, I mean, like, altruism is basically the act and the deeds of helping someone who is less fortunate than you, or just helping someone and expecting nothing in return,
Yeah,
essentially.
yeah.
And so Ayn Rand wrote about this in what she called Atlas Shrugged and The Fountainhead, and she's a fucking crazy bitch. Ayn Rand is crazy as hell. But she said altruism is the root of all evil, and she said she called people who needed help basically parasites, and so she said, like, if you help them,
Bold.
yeah. So so this is like, so Paul Ryan quoted The Fountainhead,
shit.
and Atlas Shrugged as making him want to go into politics. So that tells you a lot about who he is as a person.
Yeah.
It's like altruism is the root of all evil. So so basically, if your neighbor is like, hey, my car broke down on the side of the road, can you come pick me up? That's the root of all evil. Like, helping someone. It's so weird, man. It's such a weird, philosophical concept.
Yeah, as you mentioned Paul Ryan, one thing I've been thinking about recently a lot as far as being a politician as a public service, and how I feel like that's really, that sentiment has been lost within a lot of politicians, within our government,
Right.
at least. Because, it doesn't seem like you can look at a lot of politicians and seem like have it seem like they're doing it as a public service. The whole pursuit of it all should be to better your community and to create a better place to live in and increase the quality of life for a lot of people, even if that means that what you think is wrong.
Right.
And you don't really see that a lot in modern politics, which is quite unfortunate.
It is.
But, it does still exist.
Yeah.
And it's just
Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah. Or,
Dude.
I mean, my dude, Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
that guy, I don't even know how he's still alive. He's like 70.
The last election we had was just such a weird election, because it was between three completely different characters. Like, you had you had I think the most surprising statistic to me were the amount of people who would have voted for Bernie who ended up voting for Trump, because they found out how the Democratic Party internally sabotaged Bernie Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
They tried to keep his name off of and every time that there was a speech of his, they would cut away from it, and they just tried any opportunity to bury his name.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is the Democratic Party, this might come off as anti-Republican, this podcast, but I don't fucking like the Democrats either, dude. They're fucking horrible people.
Yeah, definitely.
They're terrible people.
They're no better.
Hillary has
ways.
blood on her hands, dude.
Yeah.
I consider myself to be moderate at the end of the day. I fucking hate the far left. I hate the far right.
Mm-hmm.
Both candidates were terrible, man. To be honest, I think Bernie would have been the best candidate, and even then he had gaping holes in some of his policies. So I think it was just a weird election, and it was.
Yeah.
But here's the thing I will say about Bernie. When you see him getting arrested at those rallies when he's 18 years old, here's a man who has always been true to himself, like we were talking about, above all else to thine own self. He's getting arrested as an 18-year-old, and he's still preaching those same ideals as an old politician. That's how you know he can't be bought. That's amazing.
Yeah. And, as an economics student and as just a, citizen in general, I personally supported Bernie Sanders. But, as you said, of course, I don't just agree blindly with everything he says.
Right.
But more than anything, all political topics aside, I just appreciate that he's open to the truth and he's willing to say that he's wrong about something.
Yeah.
Because
which is important.
Because politicians and just people, it's really not easy for them to admit that they might have been wrong about something. But I feel like more than anything, especially today in America, when you're representing so many people as a politician, to, when given information, accept it if it is true.
Right.
Regardless of your emotions or your background or your perspectives, because that's what being a politician really is a public service, and ensuring that the public is receiving policy that is based off of truth is your duty.
Right. Yeah.
So that's what I most respect about Bernie Sanders personally.
No, I get that. Yeah. I definitely get that.
But I mean, politics aside.
Yeah. No. I think honestly, and this is just my opinion, but I do think that he would have made the most. I just think, based on the pure fact that you wouldn't be getting business as usual. Like, you wouldn't be getting the people who are inundated in Washington and just have their hands just soaked in
money.
In money, exactly. And that was the best thing during his campaign. He's like, why won't you release the records of like how much you got paid to give speeches to Hillary? Like, he's like, why won't you tell people how much you got paid to give speeches? And she just could never answer that question because she's getting paid like so much money.
Yeah, and it's real life, man. It's not like, I don't know. I kind of feel like a lot of skepticism of government is seen or is looked at as like conspiracy theorists or just like some anarchist who doesn't like have faith in the government. But there are some truly unfortunate things that are happening in the government that involve large amounts of corruption, and I think Hillary would have served as like a pretty good politician in service for us, but she has her own set of flaws for sure.
Right. It's so hard to say because
her nose is still brown.
Yeah. She got blood on her hands and a brown nose. And a fucking and a sexual deviant for a husband, dude. That footage of Melania Trump, like walking by, and Bill Clinton is just like staring at her ass,
just like deadpan, like eyes on the booty, dog.
Oh my god,
and he's not getting laid with Hillary.
No. That ended a long.
I bet that shit is weird between them.
Can you imagine being like Chelsea Clinton? Like, she's probably just like, God, this is so weird. It's terrible. Yeah, just Oh my god. But politics aside, what do you have planned for the next? I don't know. What does the next year look like for Shane Mulligan?
So I might head. I don't know. I can't really decide if I want to go to that Highline meetup in the Consum's River Gorge in California.
Temptation.
Yeah. I want to go because like a lot of friends of mine will be there, and the community will just be really amazing. Touch base with all my friends and see all these cool projects go up. And,
right.
Just be a part of the energy. But pretty much my plan is to just work as much as I can this summer and save up as much money as I can, and then during next semester I'll just be going to school full time. Probably not working because I'll be taking so much school. And I'll be working with the Refugee Wellbeing Project for all of next year.
Yeah.
And so in the springtime...
By the way, is there a way people can get involved with that program? Like, is there what was the link that you mentioned? So
there's on the unm.edu, there's a Refugee Wellbeing section that you can read about, and it shows pictures and gives more information. It's a really huge time commitment. And it's really not for those who kind of just are looking for another class to take. It's really much. It's 9 credit hours.
Yeah.
Is the class.
Yeah. Whereas normally, like, what's a normal class? Like 3 or 4. Yeah.
And you have to, if you're tardy, or if you tardy 3 times, or if you like miss more than 2 classes, they drop you.
Wow.
They need like extreme,
they need dedication.
It's because you're like assigned a family.
Right. You can't.
Yeah.
You have to show up. Yeah.
You have to take responsibility, and you have to be self-disciplined. But I mean, if you have those 2 traits and you're willing to be open-minded and help people in any capacity as possible, then I mean you can participate. As long as you're a student and have like a full year to commit.
Yeah.
It definitely isn't for everybody, but if it kind of struck a tune with me, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. And so I've been like flipping around literally my whole schedule for the next entire year to be able to do this project.
Wow.
And so I'm really looking forward to it. And, after that, I'll have graduated with a bachelor's in economics, and I've gotten a lot of experience. A huge argument in my head that I've been telling myself is that no other class at UNM would really give me as much as I am going to get out of the Refugee Wellbeing Project.
Yeah.
After that, it's going to be a little bit of a different tone. I'll be pretty much like living out of my car for anywhere out of 1 to 6 months. I don't know.
So you're going to do essentially another journey where you just put...
Yeah, but focus on highlining, actually.
Okay.
I don't know. I love highlining more than anything.
You should start like a video blog and just like detail all of your travels and like the lines that you set, and because this is stuff that people would be interested to see.
Yeah. I'm definitely really interested in documenting it, like, for myself and others and like my friends to see. Because I get excited when I see my friends doing really cool stuff.
Right.
But yeah, I'd like to take life's about balance, obviously. I don't know, kind of a pun for slacklining, but I'll have spent like a couple of years focusing on school and really disciplining myself to get that done and showing myself what I'm capable of. And, like you said earlier, making my family proud that I graduated college.
Right.
It's not a common thing in my family at all.
Right.
I'll be one of the very few.
Yeah.
And,
may I ask what your what is your ancestry like? Where is your background? Where do you come from?
Well, my name is Shane Patrick Mulligan.
So you're very Irish.
If that's indicative of anything. Real quick, before I continue working, I like to work internationally with immigrants or just marginalized communities, but before that, it's all about balance and about finding your own happiness. I like to travel and highline and just kind of find myself and really push myself physically and mentally. And then after that, I basically plan on working abroad.
Yeah.
I don't really know exactly where or what I'll be doing, which is kind of the fun of it, but I know what kind of work I want to be doing. So there's no shortage of opportunities, But back to my family. Yeah, so my full name is actually Shane Patrick Nuanez.
Mulligan.
Yeah, so I got some Spanish flavor.
Yeah.
My mom calls me a green bean because I'm like Irish, like Spanish.
That's good.
But yeah, half Irish, half Spanish. Like my family was
good
an
combo,
Irish
dude.
mob in the Bronx in New York.
Nice.
Yeah.
Man, so you come from a hard line of men.
Yeah, honestly, I've been learning a lot more about my family
now,
recently.
your dad is Irish and your mom is Spanish.
Yeah, my dad's from the Bronx in
Okay.
New York,
Yeah,
and they're like second generation Irish. Just came over, like the grandfather is like from Ireland.
Wow.
They're and
you're a testament to the melting pot that is America.
Yeah, truly. I'm not far off for sure.
How did your parents meet?
My dad was a firefighter, and my uncle was a firefighter, and they knew each other. And my uncle had a sister, and they like met, which is my mom.
Right.
And they met through my uncle through the fire department, and they got married.
So your uncle, like your uncle-in-law, so your dad's brother-in-law or your dad?
Oh yeah, my dad's brother-in-law.
Okay, yeah, because I was gonna say that.
Yeah. I see what you're saying now.
Just want to correct that in case
my
anyone
mom's
gets the
brother-
wrong idea. Yeah.
So my mom's brother.
Okay.
Is how they met.
Okay.
And
I mean, how could you not fall for an Irish firefighter, man?
Yeah, right. Yeah, just like and my dad was like in the special forces in the army. He's a green beret.
Oh wow!
And so,
okay.
like he's
Damn,
just
man.
like this ripped Irish dude.
Yeah, that's badass, dude.
Yeah.
That's crazy. What was your Do you have like a fondest memory of him, or just like an overall general?
Probably fondest memories. Which it's interesting actually that you kind of mentioned that. So like I grew up in Corrales, where we are right now,
Live from Corrales.
but like so my dad designed and built a house over on Angel Road, and so that's where I grew up. But we don't have that house anymore.
Was that the house that you threw the?
Yeah, that house.
Oh my! He built that.
He designed and built that house.
Oh man, I didn't know that.
But we don't have that house anymore.
Sold it.
Yeah, it got foreclosed on, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Just the way life goes. Oh no, it's the way life goes. But it hasn't been. No one lives there.
Right.
I haven't been tended to in a very long time, and I went there right before I came over here, and it was very emotional and like heavy.
So you visited.
Yeah, just like being there, it was weird.
There's...
like smelling the same smells. Like I went in our shed and it smelled the same as it always has, and I haven't smelled that in a long time, and it evoked some really some hidden memories. I started thinking about things I haven't thought about in like years.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting stopping by there, but
that is so.
But yeah, so a lot of memories that I had with him here, while with him, were. We used to have horses. We used to ride around the river and all the ditches in Corrales, and we used to take them all over the place. And I used to help them out in the backyard, and we used to be growing all kinds of plants, and the house looked beautiful, and it was really contrasting seeing what it is now with overgrown weeds and things are falling literally off the infrastructure of the house, and there's nothing in there, and it's all locked up, and there's signs on the windows. It's crazy, man.
Fuck, man. It's
yeah.
Sorry, not to cut you off.
Yeah, you're good.
So I mentioned on the last podcast, there's, to borrow a word from the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows, there's a Greek word called kanopsia, and what it means is the eeriness of a place left behind. And so it's
What's the word again?
Kanopsia.
Kanopsia.
Kenopsia. Yeah. And it's the eeriness of a place. So if you've ever visited ancient ruins, if you've ever seen an old Pueblo settlement that's no longer inhabited, or if you've ever been to a rundown building or a theme park during off season that's been closed down, and now there's branches growing over and brambles growing over the attractions, there's this feeling of this place that once was so bustling with life that's now not. Mm-hmm. And you get this, it's unlike any other emotion I've ever experienced in my entire life.
Residual energy. Yeah.
That's exactly what it is, man.
Yeah.
It's exactly what it is. And you can sort of feel the ghosts. You can feel the echoes in the hallway.
Yeah.
That of what was. You can hear the footsteps on the staircase. You can.
Yeah. I've kind of been thinking about that idea recently. Like, not that word, but more or less that same idea, because
the emotion, yeah.
Because this is actually my dad's wedding ring.
Oh shit, man!
And this is like the necklace. It's the gold ring.
Yeah. Wow.
And this is the necklace he'd always wear, and the necklace he wore when he died, and I wear it a lot.
It's awesome.
And it's interesting thinking about like all the energy that and experiences that this ring and this necklace have experienced without me. Like this has its own journey and its own story that like I can connect to in my own subtle ways, but I can feel that like same canopsia, like that residual energy, like in this necklace, that it has power to it. Like, it has serious energy to it.
Absolutely.
And I definitely feel different when I wear this necklace, and I only choose to wear it during certain times.
I'm glad you chose to wear it today.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's the most beautiful thing you can do is
yeah, definitely.
It's a way of remembering those who have gone before us, and it's like I said, that to those who come before me, I carry the flame, and so it's
I love that.
Yeah, it's such a. I remember seeing it even as an 18-year-old, as an ignorant, dumb 18-year-old. That the profundity of that statement still struck me, and I was still able to be like, God damn! Like there's those moments in your life where you're just awed by something. Like you just have to stand back, and people are walking by on their phones and like skateboarding and stuff, and like because to them, because everyone's reality is different, everyone's perception is different, so they're not experiencing the same thing. So, but there's those moments where you're just like you feel just isolated, like you're so far away from everything, and you're connected with history, and there's people rushing by and like going about their daily life, and you're just in awe of this moment of what came before.
Just slaps in the face.
Yeah, dude, it happens to everyone in their life. It happens to everyone. And that's what I found is that's so the whole point. This podcast called At Last, Stories from the Past. And so that's the whole theme, is just listening to people's stories and where they come from and their legacy and what is going to be left when we're gone, basically.
Yeah.
Like what is going to be there for people to discover. And that's like mortality and legacy are so tied into each other, I feel like. And so your father's legacy, you know, he's this like, I've never met the guy, but I can picture him in my head, and I have this amazing picture of this strong Irishman. And you have his ring, you're wearing your ring around his neck. And so, you know, like it's a story of fathers and sons and mothers and daughters, and just carrying to those who come before. I've carried the flame.
And just maybe like on like a final note, you know, like when my dad died, he was gone. But you know, when you lose somebody who's really close to you, you understand that their love and energy still exist in the people that they loved. Because, you know, when you're around people, you pick up their mannerisms, and you go through experiences with them, and you feel the same things as them, and you share those sentiments in your own personality. And some of those characteristics shine through sometimes as something that might have been what my dad would have done. You know, I'll be talking to like a friend of his or like my aunt, and something that is like characteristically like my dad's is still living within them and is shown through them. And so leaving that legacy and being able to like see that in people it's everything.
It's so true, man.
It's all of life, for sure.
Oh, it's so true. Yeah, I think that's a really beautiful way to close the podcast. And it is. I'm not even going to taint what you just said with even more words. So, you know what, man, thanks for coming on today.
Yeah, dude.
It's an absolute pleasure, as always, my friend. I'll put a link to the video that you guys filmed with this drone.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. But anyway, if you want to find us online, go to atlastpodcast.com. Go to the store. We're having a sale on the Infinity Hoods right now. Festival season is in full swing. No two are alike. They're crafted. They're cheaper than you will ever find at the festivals. We have shirts coming out. I'll send you a shirt since you came on the podcast.
Sweet.
Yeah. If you want to find us on Instagram and Twitter, @AtlastPodcast. And if you have any fan questions, please send them to atlastpodcast@gmail.com. Signing out from Corrales, New Mexico. This is Jesse Eaves and Shane Mulligan. And until next time, my friend.
Wish there was something I could do. I hate it when I think of you.
That was a very pleasant conversation.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We'll definitely do it again. And
yeah, it'd be cool to like come back in the future and